Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the take on this Friday morning. I got to tell you something. You go back to Thursday and you've got a really wild day, but a little bit different from what we've been seeing. We've been seeing a lot of days where we start off in positive territory and then we sell off. And as the day goes on, we seem to sell off pretty much near the lows towards the end of the session. Not the case on Thursday. Thursday, we had a market that was kind of struggling along. It couldn't figure itself out. And in the final couple of hours, we had a very explosive move to the upside. Matter of fact, the Dow actually in those final 2 hours finished up 145 points, a very nice, strong move late. The NASDAQ did make a big move as well, but could not get into positive territory. But those final 2 hours did push it up and actually finish the day just down 30 points after being down significantly further. One of the things that was hitting the markets yesterday was the hit that we were seeing in the price of crude out all the way down towards 86. See, nat gas was still kind of hanging in there, holding up around a little over $9, 9.15, somewhere in that category. But you look at that volatility index, it is still holding up there, mid 20s, 25.50s where we closed out. But we've got the weekend in front of us. And oh, by the way, it's a long weekend in front of us. So keep that in mind as we get through the take here. We look at the VXN, volatility index of the NASDAQ. I continue to want to focus on that very much like we did for a long time on nat gas. Nobody was talking about nat gas. We were here at Market Rebellion and here on the take, but now everybody seems to be, oh, wow, we got to pay attention to nat gas. Here's what they're going to be talking about, the VXN. Why is that? Because we continue to watch how closely we are seeing what's going on within the NASDAQ itself. And that volatility index of the NASDAQ is very important to keep an eye on. Still holding a little bit above that 32 level, about 32 and a quarter on some very strong volume yesterday in the options world. Not expecting to see that, and that'll be reflected later when we get to the unusual option activity. But yesterday, yeah, there was a lot of activity and 44 million contracts being traded yesterday as well. That's a big number. First of all, it's a big number as you're talking about the end of summer. Yes, we're getting back to school season and all, but 44 million, nothing to sneeze at with about a 40 million average year to date. That's what we're looking at. 4 million contracts over that level gives you an idea of just how big the day was. 2-year monster day up there towards 3.5. 10-year monster day up there towards 3.25. We've been talking about that for a while, just that steady sort of a pace that we've been seeing coming out of those treasuries. And certainly that has been something to keep an eye on. Energy yesterday did melt down even a little bit further, down and finished the day down a little over 2%. It was names like Chevron and Devon, and throw in EOG, APA, you got Occidental, Pioneer, everything. The big beta names were getting hit, and those big market cap names, those big, huge integrateds were getting hit pretty hard as well. Materials did recover a little bit, but how about this? U.S. Steel was down 6%. Freeport Mac was down about 5%. ArcelorMittal down about 5%. Shows you how much pressure was on some of those materials. They finished down on the day a little over 1%. Technology recovered off of its lows of the session. It started off early on down about 1.5%, finished down about 0.5%. Microsoft, CrowdStrike, Adobe, the contributors that were pushing the technology sector down just a bit. You know what was strong? Healthcare. Healthcare was up nearly 1.7% yesterday. It was Merck, it was Pfizer, J&J, Bristol Myers. All of those were pushing to the upside yesterday. Communications as well. We look at Meta, you look at Snap, look at something like a Netflix, all in positive territory. That was pulling that communication sector up about 1%. And then look over at consumer discretion. Tesla, Amazon, Meta. There was a nice big flip early on. It was down 0.5% early. We finished the day up about 1%. So that final 2 hours, you get an idea of where some of that money went that was pulling those markets up. Moderna was up about 5% yesterday. I talked about healthcare as well. Regeneron, Pfizer, Vertex, all those kind of names. And then throw in some of those other names like a Raw store yesterday, as well as something like Walmart had a pretty decent start to the day and finished for the day as well. NVIDIA under some huge pressure. A name like Boeing also under huge pressure. You know what was getting just slaughtered, and probably part of the reason why the NASDAQ just couldn't get into positive territory? How about a name like Okta and the influence on some of the other names? Down 33% yesterday. Throw in Zscaler, that was down 8.5%. Datadog was down. Give you an idea of some of the pull that we were seeing on the NASDAQ along the way. The jobs numbers, yes, we got that delivery. August was interesting. It did beat some of the estimates that were out there. Unemployment was slightly higher, though, at 3.7%, looking for 3.5%. Early on, the market interpretation seemed to be very strong. We were up about 115 in the pre-market. We were up about 45 on the NASDAQ. As we've gone through the day, we've had some gyrations throughout the day. Matter of fact, the first half hour, we were actually only up about 60 or so points on the Dow and about 10 points, maybe even call it flat. We did go in a little bit of red on the NASDAQ. Boy, that changed in a hurry. We absolutely rocketed to the upside. Right before coming on here, the Dow was up a little over 200 points. NASDAQ up well over 100 points as well. Crude up near 89, a big bounce there, up about 2% on the day. Nat gas just kind of hanging in there. The 2-year eased back a little bit, maybe helping the markets. The 10-year, however, still right around that 3.25 level. So we'll keep an eye on that. Things do move and they do change fairly rapidly. And a reminder again, we do have a long weekend in front of us. The VIX right around 24. That probably see itself get a little bit further down as we get further into the day. The VXN right around 32. Bitcoin, not a whole lot of movement there, still holding right around 20,000. Every single sector was in the green early on. And my guess would be with that big turnaround, probably every single sector continues to be in the green. Energy was up 2%. It was up nearly 3%. Materials were up 1.5%. They've been holding on. Financials up about 1%, gaining a little bit more. I've got the industrials slipping a little bit, but you have technology that was up about 0.7%. That was up over 1%. You get the idea of what's really pushing things around. Yes, we had the job number and we had the private payroll numbers as well, all of which were considered by the markets and a little bit of fuel maybe to the markets to the upside. So that's something that's definitely standing out. Those beta names in energy, boy, they were moving in one direction yesterday, moving in another direction today. A nice move to the upside out of APA, Halliburton. I'm looking at Schlumberger. I'm looking at Devon, Hess, all those names to the upside. The cruise ships as well, names like Carnival, Norwegian moving to the upside. How about Lululemon? There's been a lot of pushback, and I took a lot of pushback years ago from a lot of the folks that sit on television. Boy, I'll tell you what, this was a stock, you just go back a couple of years, it was about 65 bucks. This is a stock that's made an incredible move to the upside. Yes, it's adjusted back a little bit with the rest of the markets, but wow, a really nice performance post earnings, up about 10, 11%. You've got those semiconductors, names like Broadcom moving to the upside. I'm looking also, we talk about those financials, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs having a pretty good start to the day. Starbucks under a little bit of pressure. Also, after day after day after day of seeing some nice movement to the upside from the Chinese names, PDD, Baidu, JD, a little bit of a pullback kind of a day for them, at least early on. We'll see if that holds up. Guys and gals, I got one unusual today. Now, why is that? Well, it could be we've got the long weekend. Yesterday was a very busy day. I would not anticipate today to be anything numbers-wise like it was yesterday with 44 million option contracts. It might be, but that's not what we'd be probably expecting. A lot of people looking forward to the long weekend. They want to see the start to the day, and then you start to see those taillights moving off. When you're in New York, they're going to the Hamptons. When you're in Minnesota, they're going up north. When you're in Florida, going to the beaches. But whatever they're doing, they stay away from the markets a lot of the time in the second half of the day. We'll see if that holds true. A lot of things have not held true to the tradition. We'll see if that does today. So I've got one unusual, and then we're out of here. AMD. Now, we talk about semis. We were just talking about what we were seeing, a little bit of movement and some of that that's been pushing to the upside. So in the semiconductors, AMD trading right around 82 bucks. We have a buyer of 13,500 of next week's expiring. So September 9th, the 90 calls. It's going to have to make a pretty substantial move in a fairly short period of time, but those options are also trading fairly cheap because of the time frame. 23 cents up to about 30 cents for those options. So very interesting. We'll see how it all plays out. We'll see if I'm right about what I'm looking towards the weekend. And as we get closer and closer to that closing bell, see if those volumes even get a little bit lighter and some of that volatility starts to sink just a little bit further as they price in that extra day. Folks, have a great day of trading. Have a great, safe weekend. We'll see you on Tuesday.